and examines the relation between legislative and executive branches. It is also a part of a book project coordinated by Irina Chmelko and John Ishiyama on the legislative-executive relations in Europe in the last 10 years. So, legislative-executive relations in parliamentary democracy naturally focuses primarily on environment on lower chamber, because lower chamber is the more powerful chamber. The composition of government is based on election results to the lower chamber. The government is accountable to the chamber. The chamber votes on the budget. However, what's happened in the lower chamber have influence on the upper chamber, because Czech Republic has a bicameral system. I will come to it later. Move it. I cannot move it.
What do you want? The next slide?
Yes, political polarization. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I can use this one.
Just the cursors here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Is it possible to use the microphone?
So? Okay. So step by step, we will resolve all the technical problems. This is better.
Yeah, just getting a little bit near the microphone. I think then it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Political polarization and globally affect negatively the decision making, weakening the legislative ability to govern, and partly shifting the power to the executive branch. In Czech case, in polarized political environment, the frequent obstruction and can significantly shift the balance power between empowering the legislative branch, even in case that there is majority government. I will use the Czech example just to show on how the behavior of deputies, which is according to law, leads to discrepancy between expectation and reality. The institution settings, the Czech Republic is parliamentary democracy with popular elected president, fixed-term president, and the prime minister and cabinet that are collectively responsible to the legislation. The bicameral parliament consists of Chamber of Deputies, this lower house with 200 members elected for 4 years on the proportional representation manner, and the Senate, the upper chamber with 81 members elected by majority rule for 6 years. And every second year, 1/3 of the Senate is re-elected. It means the Senate works continuously and cannot be dissolved. The period covered by my lecture are 2 parliamentary terms and 2 cabinets. In the first period, there was a populist center-left cabinet led by Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, who will probably be a new prime minister, we will see again. It was a minority coalition government formed by Populist Action of Dissatisfied Citizens, ANO, abbreviation, and the Social Democrats, with the support of the Communist Party. But the Communist Party have the agreement of support only with ANO, not with Social Democrats, because Social Democrats have forbidden to cooperate with communists historically. The second government, which emerged from the 2021 elections and took office in January 2022, differed significantly from the predecessor. The number of parties, the chamber was reduced from 9 to 7, and the parties with the previous term create a mainstream opposition, formed the ideologically heterogeneous 5-party ruling coalition, so-called anti-populist bloc, with a comfortable majority of 108 of 200 seats, a so-called surplus majority coalition. What I mean with mainstream opposition are parties who are the chance to become ruling parties. We have also traditional opposition like communists who never has a chance to be part of the government. Divided. So, changing privilege. So, in the second period, the former ruling party and far-right party found themselves in opposition. At the same time, the populist opposition was not united. Even though the types of voters were very similar, and both parties used the same manners how to make obstruction and how to slow down the work of the parliament. Furthermore, parties representing the left, the formerly influential ruling party for some period, Social Democrats and Communists, have been notably absent in the chamber after 2021 election. It means the disappearance of the Czech left-wing parties has led to significant shift in political landscape. Left-right cleavage was typical for Czech Republic from the very beginning. It means after the political change, all the time was the leading cleavage in our political spectrum. Now it was replaced by a new dimension of conflict, populist and anti-populist polarization, or populist and anti-Babiš polarization. It was called, according to the former Prime Minister, anti-Babiš. This shift is not only symbolic, but it has effects on lawmaking process, causing disruption in legislative process and some uncertainty in all this political development. Concerning the parliamentary opposition, as usually, aims to criticize the government, hold it accountable, and present alternative proposals to the government's initiative. However, in reality, or in Czech reality, parliamentary debates lost their dialogue and turned to permanent confrontation based on everything, just to generalize. During this 21-25 term of the chamber, the populist-oriented opposition effectively utilized the opportunities afforded by the rules of procedure, significantly influencing the working style with the chamber and shaping the political landscape. The term was marked by enormous number of plenary meetings, late-night plenaries, excessive obstruction, deterioration of parliamentary culture, personal attacks on mental health of the deputies or ministers. Some family stories was mentioned there. And a lack of willingness to seek compromise on long-term issues. Long-term issue, I mean, for example, the pension reform, which usually goes over several terms, or reform of healthcare system. The polarization combined with the opposition's obstructionist tactics and liberal procedural rules has significant impact on the ruling parliamentary majority and often lead to bypasses and enable to the government to realize just the minimum of the plans and also realize the minimum from the legislative plan for the term. This table demonstrates how the situation developed in the parliament. I take 3 parliamentary terms and compare the situation, number of meetings. You see this increased dramatically. In the 9 terms, which was the terms which exactly finished, there were only 52 ordinary meetings and 95 extraordinary meetings. Extraordinary meeting would be organized on request on at least 1/5 of all deputies, and the request has to be in written form with the fixed program and it's not possible to change the program. It means that it was not only the opposition on the beginning, but later also the coalition deputies who used the opportunity to organize extraordinary meeting, because without the possibility to change the program, it enabled them to work and to pass through some legislative proposals and to discuss the legislative proposals. Number of meetings when the agenda was not approved. Sometimes the whole day was debated on the agenda without any results. You can see it is more than doubled. Number of calendar days when they work. Number of calendar days when the session was held after 7 p.m. because the working day starts from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Night meetings. But the previous time, even during the COVID, was really a huge exception. In the last time it increased enormous, 27 night meetings. Total number of hours also increased, and debates on the program items in hours. You see, it's increased 3 times dramatically. And the debates on program in hours take 27% on the total amount of hours, working hours in the parliament. Bills, it was not so dramatic number of unfinished bills, but the question is whether how many bills even were not on agenda. So it's because there were during this period some bills prepared, designed during the COVID time, finalized, and debates and finalization of new bills was just part of this agenda on this legislative plan was really fulfilled. And the enormous amount of hours for debate and have another outcome that for several months there was no time for interpellation. It means that the deputies ask the ministers and they are forced to give the answer, which is also one of the frequent tools for how to control the government. It was not possible between October 23 until February 24, because it was basically no time. And on the Thursday, which is time for interpellation, was usually time for extraordinary meetings. Just for illustration, you can see I mentioned the number of the night meetings. It was a very frequent picture of a working room of a deputy, has some foldable bed, sleeping bag, some toiletries there, and in the wardrobe some clothes to exchange, and phone calling home to the family, etc. As I also mentioned, the long speeches, the absolute record has the chair of the SPD, it is Party of Direct Democracy, which is extreme right-wing party, maybe not extreme, it depends, but right-wing populist party. And they use one whole working day just for his speech. And the rule of procedure enabled it to him. And this longest speech was in connection with the coalition proposal, which of the legal act, which has to allow postal voting for Czechs living abroad. Because this party was strongly against, and Okamura, however, it was not the highest record. 2 terms before, he spoke even more than 11 hours. So now maybe there's condition. And the second person with the long speech was the former prime minister, maybe the prime minister in Spa, Andrej Babiš. That was only 6 hours and something. Which effects has such long speeches, obstruction, night meetings, delays in legislative work. Since action provokes reaction, the parliamentary majority, those parties who are in government, finds unconventional ways how to pass legislation, which may be sometimes in conflict with the rule of procedure. One example is closing a debate before all MPs have spoken, all who really announce the way to speak. Another tool is to set a fixed time for voting, which means the end of the discussion. And it was used sometimes, but the parties affected by this decision applied by Constitutional Court and then decided it's against the law. Since members of the government, often the ministries, often have a parliamentary mandate, the government and its MPs sometimes speed up the legislative process by presenting proposals as parliamentary, rather the government initiative. I have to say that in Czech case, each individual MP has a legislative initiative. It means can propose the law, some amendments to the law, which is sometimes really a disaster in reality. And the parliamentary proposal is not so debated in committees like the government proposal. It means it speeds up the process. However, it's not very democratic, and it also may affect the quality of the legislation. And as I mentioned, one of the most effective way how to pass legislation is through extraordinary plenary meetings. It was then later in the term more used by the majority parties, the governing parties, as by the opposition. I mentioned several times the problems of rules of procedure. The Czech case I presented here highlights the importance of institutional rules and their regulatory strengths and weaknesses. Institutional regulations designed to strengthen democracy can have an opposite effect in a divided chamber, in a chamber. This weakness can lead to executive with a comfortable parliamentary majority finding itself in the deadlock and only able to enforce the minimum of its policies because the opposition use all its legal options which are in accordance with the rule of procedure. The current rule of procedure is very liberal and define the right to speak very generously. According to paragraph 67 of the rules procedure, the President of the Republic, the members of the government, the Speaker and Deputy Speakers of the Chamber, and the Chairman and parliamentary party groups chairman may be given the floor whenever they request it. The preferential rights should not be limited in time or subject matter. However, there is another paragraph in this rule of procedure that in case that the deputy is not speaking to the topic or too long, the speaker or the vice speaker who lead the meeting can remind him that it is not the topic and maybe stop it. But this opportunity is concern only normally deputies, not these preferential votes, and this option is used very rarely. And there were several times attempts to make changes in the rule of procedure, which will enable make the parliament more working, and also the Constitutional Court in the civil discussion really proposed the idea to make changes, introduce some limits concerning speeches. However, all these proposals for changes in the rules of procedure were never approved, because in none of the terms it was in interest of all parties, and even the ruling party, at the end of the term, will not make unpopular changes, and party in opposition, which have the chance to become a governing party after election, will not support unpopular changes. So we are on the same place as on the beginning, and can just complain on the rules procedures. It will help us. I mentioned at the beginning that we have bicameral parliament, and problems in one chamber, in Chamber of Deputies, may have a domino effect on the work in the second chamber, on the Senate. Even when the primary political struggles are not typical for the Senate, it can be hypothesized that the prevailing polarization among the parliamentary elites of the chamber may also significantly influence the Senate environment, but in a different way. The reduced number of bills passed by the lower chamber naturally results in a reduced number of bills for consideration by the upper chamber. And after upper chamber, they travel to the president, which has to sign. In a situation where the chamber on its is a paralysis, any rollback of legislation for the Senate not only means further delay, but also underscore the urgency of this issue. I mean, rollback that Senate deal with the proposal, with the act, and maybe make some suggestion what to change. Then, in this case, the travel back to the chamber and has to be adopted by the absolute majority, 101 from 200 deputies, or again to the chamber and then the president. And in the Senate, when the legislation process is really slowed down and less proposals are adopted, the Senate, in case of congruence, I will explain later, decided maybe not to be another break on this process to create a new legislation. Congruence. There is, as I mentioned, difference between two chambers. Such case like obstructions, which are typical for chamber, especially in cases when these meetings with long obstructions is transmitted in TV, because it's the way how to publicize their protection of interest of the citizens, part of the citizens. It is not typical for Senate. The Senate has different dynamics. Senators behave collegially and interact basically in plenary, not too much in outside the plenary, and which is one of the explanation for absence of obstructions. Different composition of party representation in the Senate also. Populist parties has historically never been successful in these Senate elections. It means that the personal composition of Senate is quite different from the composition of the chamber. Party affiliation in Senate does not play a primary role in most cases. It is necessary to negotiate support with each senators. Individual decision primarily drives senators' decision-making process. There is also different perception of the mandate between MPs and senators. Senators are typically independents, often teachers, medical doctors, or local politicians. And they usually run for election with the support of several parties. There are some results of our research in Chamber of Deputies and the Senate. The survey was done in autumn 2023, spring 2024. And there are some questions we put to both chambers, and you can see that the deputies see basically the work in parliament as a full-time job, which is different by the senators. To whom belong the mandate? to the legislator or to the party. I mean that 2/3 of deputies think that the mandate belongs to legislators, but almost more than 95 senators see it this way. Then there is a dilemma how the deputy and the senator will vote according to their own opinion rather than of their parliamentary group. Then only 2/5 of deputies will really follow their own opinion, and maybe 95% of the senators follow their own opinion. And whom they represent, how they should vote according to their own opinion or their constituencies. We have the same picture that it's really, you can see that the senators are single individualists who vote and work much frequently according to their own opinion, legislature, and they're also much more concentrated on the work in their constituency. And also in the time of pandemic, in this case was the functioning of Senate very important, because the huge amount of legislation which was adopted was necessary to adopt it because of the pandemic and all these measures was adopted in fast-track procedure. It means shortened procedure without long discussion in one reading only, instead of 3 readings, which has impact of the quality of the legal act. And some of the deputies, a member of the lower chamber, tell us that we adopted this legislation during the COVID. We know it was not really high quality, but it was necessary. But we hope that the Senate will change it. The Senate will give it back and give some suggestion. We will improve the quality. But it's so. It just demonstrates the role of the Senate, which is less bound by political affiliation than the deputies. And the deputies also have taken into account the wish of the constituency in case that they intend to be renominated in the next election. It is different by the Senate. There are also different rules of procedures in both chambers. The Senate, there are no speech restrictions. Each senator can speak when, how long. If a single senator wants to speak continuously for 10 hours, and speak 10 hours, there are no restrictions. But they are not doing it. It's the reality. It is important to know that the Senate has no history of obstruction. It was in Chamber of Deputies, in the lower chamber, it was in the history sometimes not as in this dramatic form like nowadays, but not in Senate. However, now we have some new senators who was in previous time deputies, and then brought with them this habit how to behave in the chamber, and try to introduce again also obstructions in the Senate. Until now, unsuccessful, but we hope that it will stay so. Although the electoral system, which allocates each electoral district to a single senator, contributes to the senator's independence. Senators just devote a significant amount of their time working in the district. They continue their work as medical doctors, professors on university, whatever. And it is surprising, at least for us, that as researchers, that senators devote the majority of their working time in districts, but they do not make any decision on the regional issues. They decide only on the national issues. But I mentioned the congruence and the incongruence and how it influenced the legislative procedure. Congruence, it means there are the same majorities, political majorities in both chambers. Incongruence, different majorities. And the table according 2 years, because the statistics cover each period, which is 2 years, every 2 years, the composition change. And you can see that nowadays, during the current composition, the just finished parliament, which really have these night meetings and hours of obstructions, the Senate try not to break the legislation. There were not bills rejected by the senators. It doesn't mean they're very extra high quality. It was just the attempt of the senators push the bill through. We need this legal regulation. And you can see in this time when you have incongruence to say 2018, 2020, 2022. It was time of, it was a pandemic time, and later on the start of the war in Ukraine, and there was also plenty of new legislation adopted concerning the pandemic and war of Ukraine, and a huge amount of war refugees, which is the highest in proportion of the Czech population in our country. It was necessary to a lot of new legal regulation, and because of incongruence of the Senate was very active, amended plenty of legal acts and give it back to the chamber, really to change it, to improve it, and sometimes reject the bills. To come to some conclusion, the period under scrutiny in this paper, in my talk, was a unique period, offering exceptional opportunities for executive empowerment. Government with surplus majority, 108 from 200, was really powerless sometimes. The COVID-19 pandemic, the energy crisis, extreme inflation at the end of the pandemic, 18–19% inflation, and the war of Ukraine, coupled with the inflow of the large number of refugees, have created a distinct context that places significant demands of legislative-executive relations and legislative-executive cooperation, and it doesn't happen. The Czech case serves as a compelling example challenging the common assumption that a large parliamentary majority guarantees a strong executive. What happened in the Czech case? Just the opposite. The period under scrutiny in the paper is unique. The Czech environment, the reason of polarization are not rooted in different ideological attitudes. We know from literature they have different type of polarization based on the ideology, economic issues, etc. But in Czech case, it was rather an intense personal animosity between leaders and of the political parties. Sometimes with the parties, but basically on the leaders and the elite of the parties. We can talk about the affective polarization. Affective polarization, according to literature, means that it's the phenomenon when the individual's feelings and emotions toward members of their own political party or group become more positive, while their feelings toward members of the opposing party or group become more negative. And this affective polarization became more focused on obstruction of the opposing party rather than finding common solution. And this affective polarization really shapes the country political landscape. The presented analysis underscored the critical importance of institutional rules, the rules of procedure. While very liberal rules of procedure can be beneficial, support democracy, they can also prove to be an institutional weakness if the opposition, even in minority, can exploit them in accordance with the rules. It highlights the need for a balanced system It's federal procedure of the very liberal concept of the mandate, that each individual deputy has the right to propose legislation, to propose amendments. It's not necessary to discuss it in the parliamentary party group and to propose the common view. Which is really can be positive, but in particular cases, it also really leads to negative development. And the toxic nature of the chamber, as I mentioned, all these long speeches and night meetings, etc., and the unpredictability of parliamentary plenaries are illustrated by the unwillingness of some members, also sometimes chairs of the parliamentary party groups, to stand for the re-election. And it was not only the night meeting. It was problem, for example, for young people, women with families, they cannot plan their personal life. Also for the staff in the chamber, working 14 hours a day is against the labor code. So let's hope that the new elected parliament, which has different composition, parliament elected 5 weeks ago, different composition, which again leads to change coalition opposition with one new party, which is still first time in government, will work more effectively and hopefully more in democratic way. It means that not only some of the deputies reject re-election, but also the voters express their opinion about the parliament in the previous time. And 91 of the 200 new of the elected parliament, 91 of the deputies are newcomers. And among them are 67 women, this more than 1/3 women, which is really a record in history of the Czech parliament, because we usually have 15, 17, 22%, now we have much more. And these newcomers, there are plenty of young deputies under 30 from different regions, different professions. We have there some female student, 22 years, from political science student, young lawyer, others which from different professions. They really, the average age declined. And we can, as I follow some interviews with these newcomers, I hope they will bring some fresh air in the work of the parliament, because they have experience from the local policy, from local politics, and idea how to, an experience with the fresh experience with the work, working somewhere in the company, in the school, whatever. So they are not deputies who are sitting 2, 3, 4 terms in the parliament, somehow detached from the population. So let's hope that no, it's problem to create a new government, because we have all three parties which have to create the new government. Ano, the former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, the billionaire, owner of media, etc., still not named as a prime minister, but is in charge to create a new cabinet. The right extremist populist party of direct democracy, SPD, which is sometimes against European Union and NATO, but it's after elections it is no more the case, but against immigrants, and this party now has the Speaker of the Parliament, And there is a new party in the parliament, Motorist, abbreviation Auto, which is also a very peculiar party, supported basically in areas where the automotive industry is based, because there are again some regulations of automotive industry, against some new regulations, environmental regulations, etc. And these three, some more or less heterogeneous parties with chairperson with extreme high ego have to create the government. We will see next 2 months. But the last comment, there is also not very good time for changes of the government, because the previous government is hesitating really to send the state budget to the parliament, which is the duty, under the conditions that has to be no restriction in money directed to environment, to security, and environment. So this conditionality, which is against the law, is also a new phenomenon in Czech politics. So maybe the picture is a little bit pessimistic, but we have to hope that also the voters can hope, and the people has to be more active in the politics and attack politicians, not give them the voice and be silent for 4 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great presentation. I will stop the recording now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know how.
Somewhere here. Yeah.